And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it is the Talking Racing Now debut first episode from Stanley Media House Network. I am Sean Stanley, and I'm joined by the great Spencer O'Neill. Spencer, how we doing, sir?
Doing awesome, man. Sounds like you just spilled your Baja
I
Blast there.
think I just lost a Dolphins helmet, actually, is what fell off there. So we're crashing over here. We're hitting the big one happened just now. So hopefully no more big ones during this debut episode. Uh, Atlanta was this week for NASCAR. And let me tell you, since they've done the rebuild, I think they said this was the sixth race or seventh race since they redid the tracks. And now it's more super speedway-ish for you. And again, well, transparency. This is the first time I'm physically seeing this guy.
This is true.
I know who he is. He knows who
Yeah,
I
right.
am. But the first time I'm physically seeing him. So let's talk about this. What is your favorite style of racing?
Well, for the race, I love the super speedways. I hate the results of the super speedways, but I love the race. Um, I don't know, super speedway really.
Yeah.
The first few weeks have been great.
Yes. And that was where I was kind of going to ask you and for me, I think it is super speedway because for me, it's really the only time where, to me, anybody can win. Because I feel like when you go to the other tracks, again, whether you want to say it's the better cars, the better manufacturers, the better driver, whatever it is, there's always something else involved. There's no really like luck. It's all skill, and I'm tired of all skill. I like the luck. I like the little guys coming from the back and winning a race or finishing up. And it's kind of funny when you watch these. I think they said yesterday there's only two people that have finished in the top 10 in both races, which both were super speedway, the Daytona 500 and this Atlanta configuration now. And it was Christopher Bell, who ended up winning
Okay.
this, and John Hunter Nemechek, who finished 10th.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are two guys that have finished in the top 10 in both races. And it's like guys that, Christopher Bell, I guess you think about it that way, but like it's so odd to me when you have, and to me it's great for the sport because it allows these small, they say small teams, but now you got Trackhouse Racing has
Absolutely.
three cars now in the actually no, yeah, no, three now, and some have four. So it's amazing to me the racing and the spectacle that NASCAR has become. Hell, in Atlanta yesterday, you had celebrities up and down. Daytona 500 was the same way. It's now becoming, I won't pop culture ish. I wouldn't say it's pop culture now because not everybody's into NASCAR. But to me, it used to be NASCAR was a one kind of looked at as a one area fan base, and now to me now it's spreading out and encapsulating the whole.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of Miami connection, right? We saw
Oh
Ed
yeah,
Reed with
yeah,
Daniel Suarez,
yep,
and then obviously, Pitbull's been involved a lot.
yep.
Obviously, you've got the Michael Jordan with the 2311. I'm trying to think of who else. I don't know. But you were talking about the small guy. Let's talk about Carson Hocevar. I
Yeah,
mean, Spire Motorsports.
yep. I mean, again, it's one of those guys where it's like Carson Hocevar. I was like, oh, I don't know. But then when you see them get in different rides, you start, I guess, maybe seeing what they can really do. Because most of the time they're doing those. I don't guess, like the what they call the mom and pop organizations where they're fielding a car, they can barely get it to the speedway. They do 20 or 30 laps, the fuel bus or whatever, and they're out of the race. And those guys, you
Right.
just kind of go, man, they can never. And then you see them do these races. And I know Carson Hocevar yesterday made a lot of enemies. I think
Yeah,
there was
Ryan
like a
Blaney.
line
Yeah,
of people that
specifically.
were waiting to talk to him. But you know what? To me, man, that's good because look, Kyle Larson to me is another driver who has slowly, and Ross Chastain too. They,
Yeah.
they they don't care, man. They're just like, hey, I'm here to race. I'm here to win. They're not taking people out, but they're not just. It's
Eh,
not I-95 and you let the guy just slide in. Listen, everybody's got their way of racing. Maybe you'll let them slide. I'm not letting you slide.
Yeah, but if you don't clear, then you run to the wall.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little sore about the Kyle Larson one because I'm a 2 car man. So
Well, you can
seeing
see who I am.
yeah, seeing
I'm
the
the
Fords
11,
run
baby.
strong the 2 weeks and then get smashed into the wall at the end, it's a little disappointing knowing that your cars are the fastest. But when it comes to the speedway, once again, I love the race, but I don't necessarily love the result.
Yeah, yeah, because again, these are the races where it's really not about skill. It's really about luck. Yes, the skill's
Eighth,
going to put you in a position, but you also have to worry about somebody else making the dumb mistake and then you getting caught into it. And we saw that a couple times. Brad Keselowski was one of those victims when he was just driving around and bam, taken out, and it's like, hey, that's racing, and it's funny because I never, until recently with the new configuration at Atlanta, you never thought about Atlanta being that way. And now it's really come down to really being a speedway. It's a super speedway, man.
the interesting thing about Atlanta too is while it's a super speedway, they have a lot of control.
Yeah,
So they can not only do they run 3 wide, but they can go up and down those lanes quite easily. Like they've got a lot of control.
yeah,
So it causes a lot of moving around as far as up and down. And then also that, we saw that slingshot move from second to first and back and forth
yeah.
all weekend.
56 lead changes in the Cup race with 15 different drivers. The record was 20 different drivers, but I believe they beat I think it was 52 last year, and it was
Yeah.
56 this year. So, and again, that's the speedway racing, and the difference with this is that you could hear, especially if you watch the broadcast when they did the in cars when they were talking to spotter, like drag, 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 drag. Okay, go, open up, drag, drag, drag. So they didn't get too far ahead because, as you said, that's where that skill comes into to understand how to drag properly so that they're not just running into you and the different things, and also not letting the cars get too far out in front of you to where you end up just becoming a sitting duck.
Depending on who you are.
Yes.
So I mean, when the Fords got in front, once they had 1 and 2, you saw when it was Cindric and Joe Barry behind him. I
Yeah.
mean, they had everybody stretched out just trying to
Yeah.
keep up. It took them a long time to jam it up so that they could even make a move at all. And honestly, that was because Barry decided that he wanted to try to go for it.
Go for the lead. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had him strung out.
Yeah. When you speak of Fords, 10 of the top 11 in qualifying,
Right.
10 of the top 11 spots were Fords. And ultimately, of course, Joey Logano led the most laps, also in a Ford, 83 laps. He's also been getting some bad luck so far this year, especially in the super speedway. Because again, as you said, the 2T's been running good. He's been running very well, but again, he gets caught up in a lot of stuff and doesn't finish the race. It's just actually I think it's been that way for all those cars, right? The 2, the
Yeah.
12, and the 22.
So Blaney did get fourth in this race
Yeah,
at Atlanta.
that's right. He did come back, right? He came back
Yeah,
after.
so he was able to stay on the lead lap, and then got some new tires, and ran right through the
Yeah,
field, but he kind of got mired up in some traffic on the way back up there.
yeah.
But then as far as Joey, I mean, I don't remember specifically what happened to him in Atlanta, but as far as Daytona, what did Kyle Busch say? Like he was in a hurry to get into a wreck. I
Yeah,
mean,
he caused the wreck. He caused that one. I mean, again, even when you get Jeff Gordon to come out and like people are like, oh, at least nobody did stupid things, he said, except Joey.
yeah,
When you got Jeff Gordon calling you out, it's like, okay, all right, you need to relook at that. And again, I think it was just the fact, it's you're in there for, I think at the time he did it, there was like 30 or something laps left. So you've already done what, 430 miles. There's about 70 miles left of the race. So you're
hmm
just like, you're probably over it. You've probably been getting beaten, banged. You're like, all right, I'm taking that spot. And it just wasn't there. It
Well,
wasn't,
Joey was so dominant at Daytona that he was
yeah,
intentionally giving up lap position
yeah.
and then just taking it back because he knew he could, which was incredible to watch. Like I said, I love the race, but the result, the fastest car didn't win.
No, and how many times does the fastest car actually win in the super speedways? I don't think
Not
ever,
often.
ever. And that's why, like some were saying about the Toyotas, they're like this year, and I know the Gibbs cars all finished qualified 26th or worse. with like 132nd, 136th. And then when you look at it, you had what? You had Bell up in the top, and you had Hamlin in sixth, and then you had another Toyota with Wallace, and of course, yeah. So the Toyotas ended up finishing good, but again, a lot of the good Fords were caught in some of those accidents to where it might have been a different thing, if you mire up into those. The funny thing I saw was Toyota had a 15 race winless streak, the last Toyota to win in Atlanta. And again, now remember, when I say this, Atlanta did go to for like a stretch of like 7 or 8 years. I think they were only doing one race, and then they went back to 2 races, and then 1 race, then 2 races. So it caught me off guard because it was September 2013, the last time a Toyota won at Atlanta.
Wow.
And
I mean, when did Toyota even enter NASCAR? That seems like
right,
it may have still had
right
Dodge.
around. Let's see. Yeah, I have to double check that. I know it was right around when, because Gibbs and Hamlin were the guys I came into the year, because that's kind of the year I really jumped into the NASCAR, and my favorite number was 11. That's kind of how I became the Denny Hamlin fan. Just so, let's see. It doesn't say right here on top of the thing. I'm trying to see where it says, but it doesn't say it right in there. But I know it was around. I want to say it was like 2001 that they actually came into NASCAR, but I might be 100% wrong on that, which I usually am wrong on a couple things every once in a while.
I'm wrong all the time.
Let's see. Trucks entered NASCAR in 2004 in the Truck Series, 2007 in the Cup Series. So
Wow.
there you go. So that would have been 6 years in was their last win, and then they've only had 5 top fives in the 6 races in the new Atlanta. So Toyotas have not run well in here, and
they also don't seem to draft well. Like they don't seem to bump well.
because they have that more compared to the other manufacturers. Theirs are more round, like they have that area in the front, and then kind of round out a little bit. Or
like I remember we saw Bubba get to the front for a fleeting moment in Daytona, and the moment he got there, he got one bump and was just like out. He was not wrecked, but he was to the side and it was over. I never saw him again.
yeah, you almost have to hit it perfectly. If you don't, it just. And again, that might also be some of the setup, maybe, to where some of these cars have, the setup into, the weight distribution. When they get hit one way, they start going, again, because everybody sets their cars up a little bit differently on certain things. Again, there's regulations and stuff you have to hit, but some teams will fluctuate with certain things there depending on where they're at on the tracks. And I did notice in Atlanta this time they added. I know if you watch Larry McReynolds at the beginning, they put some things in because of what happened with Ryan Preece again in Daytona. Seems like every time we're in Daytona, he's flipping. Somehow they repaved it, and he still flips, And now and it was weird. That car went up like a wheelie, and it went over this time. And then they added some stuff for downforce and things for that in Atlanta. So again, it's going to take them a while to figure out what actually happened in Daytona, but you could see they're taking as much precaution. And that's the one thing, with NASCAR is they try to make this as safe as possible for these guys as they're doing, more and more speeds every year.
Well, yeah, they got the wall, which they implemented, which has some give to it.
Yep.
As far as Preece, I mean, it was interesting to see the car go so far on 2 wheels, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it took a while to move, and then it finally did kind of roll a little bit there. But
and it looked like it rolled when the other car got to, like it looked like it was going to come back down, and then the other car got near it, and then it kind of sent it.
Mess with the air.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I don't know how, as NASCAR, how you avoid that, because I don't know how you're going to get that situation. It doesn't happen every time in a race to where you're popping, you're up as a wheelie and you're going to come down on another car, and then the ultimately, You know, it's just like, I don't know how you reenact, I guess, that to try to figure out, okay, here's what we need to do, because that, I don't think that happens 9 times out of 10. You have that freak time, and that was that freak time. And I don't know if it happens again. So,
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen somebody go into the fence in Daytona coming
yeah,
around a 4. So,
yeah.
I've been at the race before where you're sitting in, and I live in the Daytona area, by the way. So, Daytona is very personal for me.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. And I've been at the race before where, that car comes out of 4 and it gets up into the fence,
Yeah.
and you've got like an engine rolling out of it coming through the fence and like
That was Austin Dillon at that one
getting
year, right?
dangerously
Austin
close to
Dillon.
hitting people. Like, yeah, that was, yeah, it gets a little wild.
Man, that's none of that happens down here at Homestead, by the way. Let me tell you.
Yeah. I've
Homestead
been to
now.
Homestead before too.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it is a good race because of the atmosphere and the things like that, but there's not a lot of action other than the restarts.
Right.
Restarts and pits. You're like, okay, come on, guy, let's move up some. Okay, all right. Racing. Other than that, the racing's kind of like, okay, all right, all right, all right. Somebody might lose the air pressure and go down, but I wish I could go to more Daytona races. I think I'm gonna try to head up there. The July race this year, is that not July? The second race,
August.
that's not going to be a. Is that a speedway, or are they going back to the road course for the second race? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean,
I gotta, I gotta double
I thought they
check.
just moved it to August.
Yeah,
It was in August last year, and it was, still a super
yeah,
speedway
speedway.
race.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I'm glad they got rid of that. Any other things that you saw happen in Atlanta that you were kind of, uh, that caught my eye? Because honestly, I thought the racing, other than some of the cautions, was pretty uneventful. Honestly, I mean, it was good racing, but it was, there was no, I don't know, it just wasn't. It was basically, the drafting. There was no big moves, no big mess ups as far as. I mean, Hamlin, the one time when he finally worked his way to the front, went through too many pit stalls, got
Yeah.
pushed to the back. I mean, that happened a couple times to a couple good cars. You talked about Ryan Blaney, who kind of got spun out, went down, really didn't have a damage, got to tires, worked his way all the way back up to fourth. Which
Yeah.
again, if you looked at that situation, he probably runs away with this race.
And he was in fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh for a
Yeah,
while. He just got mired back there and couldn't make his way back up to the front, but he was clearly the fastest car all day.
yeah,
I would say that, I thought Kyle Busch was interesting. So, Kyle Busch really, really has a lot of dominance in Atlanta, along with some other people, right? And, he raced the trucks,
yes,
won the trucks, eighth win in Truck Series. He's got 8 prior wins in the Xfinity Series, and then he's got 2 in Cup. So I thought that, it was probably a pretty good weekend coming up for him. It looks like he got 7th. I thought we were going to see more of him at the front. We got a little bit of him at the front, maybe about 3/4 of the way through the race, if I remember correctly. And he just never really took control of the race. Um, it was interesting to see the difference between the Cup Series race and the truck race, because in the truck race, it was like Kyle Busch versus the whole field, and they all kept taking their turns
mhm,
doing that move against him, and then he would just do the move back, right? In the Cup Series, once he got up front, he couldn't play the defense the same way. And, you just see the difference in the skill of the drivers.
drivers, yeah, yeah.
They were not just going to let him keep doing that to them. No, he was falling back at that point. Also, his car isn't fast enough to just dominate from the front.
That's what I was going to say. Those cars feel like they got good. They're good enough to run in mid pack toward the front, but not good enough to win.
Right.
It feels like
So,
that's where, at least the 8 car.
So
It
the
feels
difference
like that's
between the
where he's at.
Chevys up front and the Toyotas up front and the Fords up front, like you saw it, when the Chevys are up there, they're not pulling the pack.
Mhm.
So, you've got 2 lanes forming and they're side to side pretty much the whole time. And it's a lot of movement back and forth because there is nobody pulling that pack. There's nobody pulling it forward. And you've got the Fords that were pushing, pushing, and pushing. And it's causing a lot of movement, a lot of back and forth, a lot of really exciting racing.
Yeah.
Um, and then the Daytonas, or not Daytonas, the
And
Toyotas.
by the way, when I meant like nothing eventful, I mean, it was good racing. It was great racing,
Mhm.
but there was no like, oh, that key to that move was, like you said, with Kyle Busch and the trucks. he would let those guys get out in front. Then he would do his move, and then he'd just play cat and mouse with like each one. Like, are
They
you
all
guys
took their
not?
turn.
Yeah, and it was funny because at the end they asked him, he kind of volunteered the information about the trucks. He says because the trucks are closer to the next gen cars than the Xfinity cars are. And he said, I hope some of these young guys go back and watch the footage of what I did to them and learn.
Right.
Because he knew exactly what he could do. And again, that's where the thing rolls onto when you look at it in Cup is you don't get those opportunities. Like, and also with that next gen car, it didn't feel like there was a couple times where 2 or 3 cars might have gotten out far enough where that bottom row wasn't really coming up enough. But
Right.
other than that, it was pretty tight racing during a lot of the Cup cars. It wasn't stretched out like where the trucks after a while kind of stayed in one line, and then some would try to jump out, then they'd go to the back, and then the Cup race felt to me, and watching it felt like every lane was raceable.
Right.
It just depended on who was leading that lane, whether it went forward or it fell back. And that's kind of the way the race went.
It seemed like there was very little 3-car rate, like three people racing. But when it did get it going,
Yeah.
What it seemed like what would have been that middle lane was using a lot of the top in the middle and going back and forth, and the lower lane was staying pretty much low. And we never really got a high line developed through the whole race where there was just a high line with 3, 4, 5, 6 cars pushing.
And even when it got 3, it felt like they smushed down, like they stayed away from the high top and kind of went lower. Like the three wide was still not up in the higher lane to me when I watched it.
I think it might be a little harder to cut, like to hold the wall than it is at Daytona, at Atlanta. It does seem like when you're coming out of turn 2 and turn 4 that there's a little bit of that bleed up, right? I mean, we saw Kyle Larson, when he didn't clear Austin Cindric, I mean, they ran out of space, and maybe he thought he cleared or maybe he didn't. Whatever, I'm sorry about it. But
yeah, I think during his interview he said they just ran out of room. He thought he had more room, I think he said, and then it was out of room. It was so it's not much they can do after that.
Yep.
When you look back at one of the things too, and we kind of discussed this off of the air, was the Cup race finishes under caution when the wreck happens on the backstretch. The Xfinity race, which Austin Hill won, does not. The wreck kind of happens the same way. I don't remember if it was a green-white checker for Xfinity or not. I know there was a late crash, but I don't know if they ended up green-white checker or if it was like the last 5 laps. But either way, it goes down to green-white checker for the Cup guys. There's a wreck on the second, and as soon as the cars start wrecking, the yellow comes out. And again, and at first everybody's like, oh, wait, when did the yellow come out? Then when they showed it back, the yellow comes out. Christopher Bell's way in front, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to what they thought it was, because again,
it wasn't close.
Yeah, it wasn't close once they ran it back and was like, okay, let's see when the yellow hits. I honestly think that Harvick and Boyer and them thought it was closer to because when they ran it back, they're like, oh, no, that's easy. That's Christopher Bell. I think they were hoping it was going to be a little bit tighter because remember, last year in this race was the closest finish in NASCAR history.
Right, and they did kind of race it out to the line, and it was pretty close.
Yeah.
I don't remember who won to the line, but it didn't really matter, so they didn't spend much time talking about it.
Yeah.
But the 3 of them were pretty close there going to the line.
Yeah, no, once it got up to it, once they got tied up, it was almost like the year before when it was Suarez, Blaney, and Busch were the 3, and this year it was Hocevar, Bell, and who was it? Oh, Larson.
Yep, Kyle.
So,
Kyle had taken the lead, and it was all that talk of is he going to put the Speedway demon away? Is he going to finally do it? And the answer is no.
No. Yeah. And it's so funny too, man, because everybody talks about the Speedways and for instance, Kyle Busch has never won the Daytona 500. And it's like, it just seems like with all the winning he's done, that would have been a race that he's won. And it's and you look at like Kyle Larson. I think what is it like 16 DNFs on on the speedway racing. Like it is just again, it's not about skill on the speedway. It's about luck. I mean, yes, the skill's going to put you in maybe a position to win, but for the most part, it's about luck because I don't know how many times. I mean, again, I love Denny Hamlin. He's one of the top speedway racers, but it sometimes irks me when they just hang out in the back for the whole damn race, but then at the end he's usually there.
Right.
So it's like, it's just like I sit there for 480 miles going, okay, we'll make the move soon.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we'll make the move soon.
We'll just wait. We'll just wait and see what happens at turn 4 if he
Yeah.
happens to be there or not. If he can get
Yeah.
the
It's like,
William Byron and go from 8th
yep.
to first.
And I remember they said it this year in the Daytona 500. It was like, you don't want to be between 6th and 20th around this lap because that's when the big one happens. And of course it did. And it took out a lot of good cars. And that's the thing with speedway racing that you discuss so much about. This weekend you had, again, Kyle Busch wins the truck race, which my dad is so, he's so against Kyle Busch racing against the young guys. He's like, it's not fair. It's like yeah, but again,
I wrote that. I took some notes on that, and that was something that I wrote is should they even be allowed to do this?
yeah, well, they cut it down to 6 races now, at least. I mean, at least now it's only 6. And honestly, I don't think I think it's Xfinity saying, hey, we need some star power to get, because again, Daytona probably, the truck race is probably filled. I don't know how it goes there, but Daytona, I got to believe, because racing returning, usually you probably have a good crowd for the truck races there.
I mean, the truck race is all right. It tends to be on Friday. The thing about Daytona is I've been to Daytona 1,000 times, and it always rains. I can't count the number of times I've been to a truck race or an Xfinity race where we're having a night race and it's supposed to be at 9 and it rains till 12 and we're starting at 1:00 and I'm there till 4:00 in the morning and it's cold, like.
Yeah. Well, no, because I know down here in Homestead, when you go to the truck race and you look up in the stands, it's like, oh, these guys, they deserve better, man. The guys and gals racing deserve, like, it's good racing, man. And it's just nobody there. And I'm like, so to me, I feel like maybe the tracks are more like, hey, at least if we throw a Kyle Busch in there or a Larson or somebody in one of these trucks or an Xfinity, we'll get some people to watch the race. And
yeah, but you'd have to know
you'd have
to also know that they were going to be there, like when you bought the ticket.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, especially for the Daytona race, I mean, you buy that stuff the year before.
That's true. Yeah.
But
yeah, because it was just announced about the Kyle Busch thing for the 6-3, or the Tricon. He's doing the Tricon, and that's the thing too with truck racing. Like, you have a lot of, like, I think the Tricon has like 6 trucks. It's not 4 there. It's like they've got a whole fleet of trucks, and like 2 of them are just for, I don't say part timers, but for like your Kyle Bushes, your Larsons, whatever, whoever wants to run in that race is going to be in the car. And then today, I know one of the Xfinity drivers, Garrett Smythley, was like, I'm giving my seat to Carson Hocevar because he's a better road course driver than I am for COTA, which is the race coming up. He made the decision, best for him and his team, if he put Carson in that seat for that race because he's not a good road course guy.
You better figure that out.
So, yeah, I mean, that was a thing. Like, I would want to have the seat time, but again, I don't, again, maybe he's taking the bigger man role out and being like, I decided, when actually he probably was just told that, hey.
He might have been told, yeah, but it's time for him to get in the simulator.
Yep. So, but again, a lot to me, it has been a great start to the NASCAR season. Any surprises? And I know it's tough to be surprises because of the 2 tracks that it's super speedways, it's speedway racing. So nothing really like surprising right now because you get caught up in accidents and things like that. But are you looking at anybody kind of like, let me see how this goes for them? Because these 3 races, to me, I mean, I know the racing is, every race counts, but I don't know if you can gauge on these three. The first three races are going to give you a good gauge on how the playoffs are actually going to turn out, minus the winners. I mean, the winners, again, you win, you're in the playoffs, most likely, unless there's more than, what is it, 16 winners. Then
I believe
you,
it's
yeah.
16.
Yeah, unless you get more than 16, which hasn't happened as of yet. Last year, I think it got to 15, and then Bubba got the last spot. But anything you look at and go, that's kind of worrying me, or hey, that's a surprise so far.
I would say the lack of a surprise. So you've got two racetracks where anybody can win, right?
Mhm.
And really, what you've got William Byron and
Christopher
Christopher
Bell.
Bell, and I would expect both of them to be in the playoffs. So that's two opportunities for, say, a Michael McDowell who won in
Yeah.
2021, or a Carson Hocevar who came in second and had a hell of a race, but I don't really know that I expect him to do very well anywhere else. Maybe he'll surprise me.
Yeah.
Um, those are two opportunities that are gone, and there's limited numbers of those in tracks where it's kind of a crapshoot for no other word to say. So the lack of a surprise is not a little surprising, but it's disappointing for some of the other drivers.
Yeah, because like you said, I feel like these are the ones where they go, and that's what I was kind of getting at. Whereas this is anybody can win these races. It doesn't come down to, as long as your engine is strong enough and you're there at the finish, you got a chance to win one of these races, no matter who you're driving for. And that's that. I guess in a way, I guess that would kind of be, yeah, the lack of surprise, because now, again, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, you got cars that are kind of down at the bottom now because of DNFs. I think Kozlowski finished good in the Daytona 500, didn't he?
I don't remember.
There's a couple that had DNFs in both races, which I don't think is going to matter because they'll work their way. Like last week, Hamlin was in 36th in points. This week he's 11th in just one race. That's how quickly it turned around, and it can turn around. I know Byron gets 5 playoff points with the win, and now Christopher Bell will get 5 playoff points for the win. And those win, I believe they get to keep those points throughout this year. And another thing that was added, and which again could affect Larson, I guess, technically, because he's supposed to be doing the double duty Memorial Day weekend. There's no more you miss a race, you lose your points.
Yeah.
And that could play into factor here, or he'll have to make a choice. I'm going to race the Indianapolis 500. He's not going to be able to do what he did this year because you're not going to probably get the rain delay at both.
Right.
That delay at both that kind of saved him this year. So, but it'll be a very interesting season. We'll dive more into playoffs as we get further along. I don't think I really, like I said, with right now, the 2 speedways and the road course, we might look at the playoffs maybe after next week's race, see if there's any big surprises, because I think next week we'll play a little bit more because you got strategy.
Well, I mean, next week
That's
is what? Is
things.
it going to be Kyle Larson or is it going to be Van Gisbergen, right? Like
Yeah,
that's the question.
but again, there comes your surprise this year, right? Because now you got Van Gisberg, who's Van. Say his name.
I might have added another Ergen in there. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I can't remember 100%. SVG. Everybody knows him, SVG. That's what I'll call him, SVG. He could be the surprise on these road courses, man, because he knows how to run these courses. He showed it in the Xfinity. He showed it in trucks. He's shown it in ARCA. He's done pretty well in all of them now. If you can stay in the race, he doesn't get spun out or something, maybe,
Right.
there might become your surprise, I guess, because if he steals one of those races, that kind of takes it away. Like you said, Larson, who are some of the other better road course guys? Man, trying to think, is the 48 is Jesus. Oh, drawing a blank. Hendricks 48. Bowman. He sometimes does good on these courses there, and so it's going to be interesting to see. Because then after that, I believe it's Vegas and then Homestead, I think, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around that time frame. I think those are your races. And again, Homestead, or no, actually, I think it's Vegas, Phoenix, Homestead, or something along those lines. And Homestead and Phoenix are basically the same track.
It's still cold. They're staying in the South. That's all I know.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes because a lot of things can change and will change as they start getting to more of the, regular tracks. You've got the July 4th. I know definitely will be a road course because that's Chicago now. That's kind of the mainstay on July 4th weekend. So you got COTA now. So there's two. I think the Mexico City race is before the playoff cutoff line as well. So you've got a couple chances for some of your ringers to possibly, get into where they might not win on your other tracks.
Right.
All right. So this weekend it is COTA in Austin. We kind of looked at, I think you probably hit the two guys you're going to watch. You throw Suarez in there too because he seems to do good at some of these road courses there. So there's some of the guys to watch. I will be watching the qualifying, which now has been moved to Prime Video. So if you don't have Prime Video, looks like I don't know if it's every one of them. They did it this week in Atlanta. So they're doing this. They're moving it all over the place. And also, if you NASCAR this year, remember, they're also on Prime Video for, I think, 5 races. So there are going to be a couple races where you're going to have streaming services if you want to watch your NASCAR. So a lot going on in the NASCAR world, and we'll be here to get you through it each step of the way. You'll probably get these on the Stanley Media House Network every Tuesday morning. And, of course, you can follow me at Stanley Media _11 on X, and I'm at Stanley Media House on all other social media platforms. Please hit the subscribe button. Get your NASCAR talk in right now with myself and Spencer on Talkin Racing Now. Spencer, let them know where they can get a hold of you.
Well, you can find me on the chat board on,
That is right. The Red Circle Digest as well.
That's right. But as far as if you want to hit me up, you can hit me up at NoelDow87 on X, and reach out there.
He is a Seminole. He is a Seminole.
I am.
We don't hold it against him. He's my favorite Seminole. He's my favorite Seminole.
We're suffering, so it's okay. It's easy to be nice to us now.
I'll leave it at that. So next weekend we are in COTA. We will follow that race right here on Talkin Racing Now. Next Tuesday it will be out. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. Please hit the subscribe, hit the notification button, and until next Tuesday, we'll talk to you later.